It happened in a film last night, but in the second film last night, And I Will Rise If Only to Hold You Down, for those of you who were here last night, there's the couple in the kitchen, and they're talking about what they will each take from the breakup. And just before that, he's kind of revealed that he's got huge kind of clown gloves on. And then he kind of keeps gesturing in this kind of intense moment where, like, you have to take something so you don't forget, but he's still got these ridiculous clown gloves on. And I think in my real life, I don't have the ability to sort of maintain a very intense emotional conversation for too long without cracking a joke, because I'm immature. I also think that my own response to emotion comes not from, my sort of, I don't know, like I express myself more genuinely through humor. So it's also, the props are also really meant to sometimes like disrupt the tension. But yeah, for sure to add to the narrative content. And it's kind of my most favorite part of like pre-production is prop shopping or prop making.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it kind of actually goes back to what we were talking about last night about sort of different forms of communication and maybe the inadequacies of language to make human connection. So the props for me sometimes function that way, but so do a lot of visual effects that you're doing, that we saw a lot of tonight, and just different modes of communication, from the texting emojis to mind melds between girls and attempted mind melds with parents that never quite work. Can you talk about sort of the visual effects and how?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, I think there's also, they started in a project a long time ago. I think also, this is just, again, I said this last night, but this conversation is going to be like Fight Club. So whatever we talk about in here stays in here. And I will tell you that when I first started making these kind of narratives, I had zero confidence that they were functioning. So I would do these things like maybe a butterfly comes through. Maybe her head turns into like a curly bubble, or something. To try to also distract an audience from what I thought was not functioning in the narrative. I mean, that would be my first instinct, right? And then, I've worked with Michael Lange for a long time, and he would always kind of let me do that, knowing that eventually I was like, okay, we got to get rid of that, because now that scene functions really well. But it's, the sort of, the kind of magical realism moments are, they really very much they become the sort of utopia, the utopic moments where everything else is like dystopic, and so they become, they, like I was sort of saying last night about maybe the cat sweatshirt glowing at a million miles away that screamed last night, that they're, they suggest that there is magic in the world, or that there is true love, or that there are things around us, protecting us, or that telekinesis really works, that a teenage girl who cannot at all communicate with her mother can communicate with, her new love interest, and the communication works flawlessly, with no judgment. And so, and in the Blood Below the Skin, there's much less of that. It really only happens when I think, right, when the girls are sort of are mind melting. And so it's happened much more in earlier work, but it's about the kind of parallel world. And in the parallel world, there's magic, and there are all these beautiful, there's true love, and there's synchronicity.
Do you guys have any?
I got friends.
Oh, great.
Well, no, actually, I'm a musician, so if you...
I'm always looking for musicians, yeah.
Yeah, so if you
I got funding in the States to make a feature film that's based on themes from Blood Below the Skin. So Blood Below the Skin was actually adapted from a couple of kind of deleted scenes from the feature-length script, but there's I got funding to make a feature film, so we'll probably shoot that a year from this summer. And the book? Oh, okay, great, done. I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. You guys, I told you people, we're all in this together. Actually, we'll just stay. We'll stay and we'll write it together. Let's meet after. We'll write a book. I know.
Hi. It was really exciting to see both of your programs here. Are you planning on working with the same set of young actresses in the feature length?
No, they're too old. They'll be too old.
Okay.
You know? I mean, because they really change a bunch. So you saw a bunch of them in A Million Miles Away last night.
Yeah.
And even in like the year between shooting both of those, they changed. Like the ugly ones got really pretty and the pretty ones got not ugly. In a good way, you know what I mean? The ones who had no acne, all of a sudden they showed up on set again. I was like, whoa. It's cool, yeah, no, it's fine. And vice versa. But now they really, they just look too old, you know, and they're genuinely, you know, 17 and 18, and so I need 14-year-olds again, and I'll find them. And the guy, the producer who has taken on the feature length said that one of the strengths that he saw in this in terms of casting was like casting actual teenagers who have some performing experience but aren't professional actors, and then pairing them with professional adult actors, and that combination seemed to work really well.
Another quick question. Do people often compare your work to that of Miranda July, and how do you feel about that comparison? I know you're roughly the same age, so I can't quite even figure out if there's a...
Yeah.
Like, who came first, and I'm seeing so many parallels.
I did. You can tweet that, Facebook that one. No, actually, it's funny, you know, Miranda and I are friends, and we've been friends for, since like the mid 90s when she started the like Joni for Jackie. Before that was called Big Miss Moviola, the kind of video chain letter project. And so she and I have been friends for a long time, and I think it's partially coincidental, kind of both of us coming out of sort of third wave riot girl feminism and sort of DIY kind of zine culture, you know. So I think it's partially coincidental, you know, that there's that, you know, there's that similarity. I mean, I think about also someone who actually did sort of predate both of us, like Sadie Benning, you know, who's now making paintings, but, you know, those early Pixel Vision videos were, I don't know that they were influential for me, but there was that felt like, oh yeah, okay, so we're all part of this same, some kind of, you know, thread in terms of what we want to make work about. And for me, it actually goes back even further to sort of like the early performance-based feminist video art, you know, like Martha Rossler and Linda Montano and all these early kind of 70s feminists who were using porta-packs and whatnot, who were still basically just turning a camera on and then performing in front of the camera, because we were kind of all doing that in a way in the mid-90s, Miranda included, but we weren't necessarily calling each other like, are you going to make a video today where you're standing in front of the camera doing something weird? Because I am, you know? But we just were making those videos, and then we would see them, you know, and nobody was kind of like, you ripped me off, you know, but it was it felt good. It felt like we were part of an unnamed kind of community of women making a specific kind of media. I had my kids first. I had kids before she did, so there's that.
Okay. Like the other Jennifer mentioned, there's quite a few recurring props in these works, especially the later ones. Like, do you actively go to these same props and like question them? You know, what new situations arise from you in this new context, or do you just find yourself drawn to the same themes, and then, you know, sort of new situations just emerge that these props make sense, and like, what's the direction there?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So there's this recurring kind of like world's best mom, world's best dad, you know, that is on an apron, and then it's on a cup later. It occurs again in the script that I'm writing, just that term, you know, and how it exists on. So it was like that term, like that theme, that kind of world's greatest mom, world's greatest dad, is. That's a theme, but then incorporating that into different props that sort of also reoccur makes sense. But for instance, the band uniform, which is retiring sadly after Blood Below the Skin, partially because people keep asking like, what is with that band uniform? And I don't actually have a good answer. I always say like, well, it looks good, right? It looks good on camera, you know, it photographs well. That's part of the answer. It also, I think, for me, denotes like a teenager. Although colleges have marching bands, but it's rare that you'd see like a fully formed adult just walking down the street with a band uniform. Mostly it's younger people. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I think a lot about the props, and they're always in the script. You know, it's rare that I sort of just show up on set with like a box of props. Like, what can we put in here? E.T. Can E.T. fit in here? You know, that it's very. I think about the props when I'm writing the script, and then I either make the props or go find those or go find the props, and then the props eventually end up in my house as just a regular shitty coffee mug in my life.
Well, those big hug mugs are now because of what television show?
I don't know.
They're all on eBay. You can sell them for like
right.
$50, $100 each. Makes sense. Come on. Anyway, I have another question for you about boys.
Oh, great.
Boys.
Yes. Yeah, let's talk about boys.
Okay. So boys show up. Yeah, they're boys. I guess they're all boys. Sure. But even in Double Image. Can you kind of talk a little bit about how you form male characters, because we talk a lot about girls and the power of adolescence, female adolescence, but there's definitely like boys get in the way a lot. They're kind of annoying. No offense.
They still do.
Yes, but there's also like I don't know, this sort of female gaze thing going on, especially in Double Image, where you do feel like there's the guys have like a certain sexuality, I guess.
Sure. Well, and for sure in Double Image, and for those of you who were in the program last night, those two pieces, and you saw the one that's like the companion piece to that, which is The Swimmers, which is more of a documentary, kind of a really quick glimpse of girls at a swim meet. And so those two pieces were companions in actually a gallery-based installation that I did. So they sort of spoke to each other, both kind of watching in a more observational way. Girls being very self-conscious in swimsuits at a swim meet, and then watching, very sort of sympathetically, watching this guy kind of own the high school hallway, but he's still also like got that weird kind of can't grow in a beard, patchy stubble, and then zitty. He's still like, he's got all this kind of confidence, that sort of boy swagger, but he's still like a baby on some, at some point. And so that was a really, really sympathetic view of that, and for sure gazy and romantic. And then the guys in Blood Below the Skin, the poor guys, the one that we called him Lestat, the guy with the long hair. His real name is Luke, but we would be like, Lestat, like move over a little bit. And he had to make a disclaimer on the day that we were shooting, where he had to, do that awful sort of tongue finger gesture and shove Kelsey. He was like, "Can I just say that in real life I would never talk to a girl like this. I would never touch a girl like this. I am a feminist." And I was like, "Okay, can I just say it's a feminist set and it's a script, and Luke would never, it was he really needed to make that that disclaimer, which was really sweet." And so, and all those boys in real life are, not that you doubted this, but because they're acting, but they were all super respectful to the girls on set, and of course, like the girls on set kind of ran the set, in real life. But I hope that in a way that the boys' portrayal, especially in Blood Below the Skin, where they do kind of get in the way and they don't get it, that the subtext is that they're dealing with their own thing, like their own. How they're supposed to act in public, and how they're supposed to sort of like puff up and pretend and perform their gender also, and that they're getting it wrong, and that there's a flip side, or there's a story to what's happening to them where they are making huge mistakes one after the other, and they simply don't know it. Like they're just too also kind of consumed by their own lives to see that, which to a degree is why I knew that I had to figure out a way to kind of call out his behavior but still make it a secret, so there wasn't there's the confrontation with the girl in the hallway where she says, "You treat girls like shit," and maybe let's pretend that those boys walk away from that, and the girls are singing to them, and they go to the cafeteria, and they're sort of like, "Do we treat girls like shit? I don't want to treat girls like shit." Like, maybe they have a really good conversation about it, They think about it, and they change their behavior. Let's pretend that happened, because it could. But at the very least, I needed for his behavior to be called out, because I also think that we assume a lot. This is in real life. We assume a lot from people, and even I know that as a woman, I oftentimes assume a lot from kind of bad behavior from, let's say, men, and I assume that they know better and that they are doing something very purposefully to sort of hurt me or hurt someone else or degrade, me or someone else. And when in fact, if you say, women don't like to be called honey, they're like, really? Yeah, no, we don't like that,
They're teachable.
They're teachable. It's weird. It's interesting. They're animals. And we are perfect. So I think that in the film, I at least want to suggest that they'll get better. Those boys will get better. That those girls will call them out one jacket at a time, and that they will, that things will turn for them. Because maybe I said this last night. At least I said I had children, but I have 3 sons, which is hilarious to somebody, and so, I think I owe it to them, and I owe it to myself, and I owe it to the human race, the whole of the human race, to make a film about boys and make a film about boyhood. I have not seen Boyhood. So if any one of you ask me that after, I don't know what will happen, but it's not going to be pretty. I haven't seen it because I just haven't seen it yet. But I want to make a film about boys. To sort of even it up a little bit, because there's absolutely a parallel experience that they are having where they are misunderstood also by adults, and they're also kind of misperforming their own gender in a way that can get in the way of just sort of their own progress as humans.
Any more questions?
Are we about to get kicked out? No, there's another one. There's another one in the middle.
I was fascinated by the presence of the classroom in so many of the films, and particularly when adults are returning to the classroom in the recreational physics club.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could talk a bit more where that concept came from and why you're fascinated by that setting.
Recreational physics, that's funny, isn't it? Let's get physics cold. That's their theme. I don't know if you can see that. There's we made little name tags that say that, let's get physics cold. That's my favorite, one of my favorite props. I think it's a real physical space of maturing, right? It's a physical space of transition, right? So kind of being in school. Being a student, for instance, you there's an assumption about you being in transition, and I think that there's some empathy that goes along with that. So as adults, in a way, right, we're supposed to have gotten things figured out, and the transitioning is done. We're fully cooked. When in fact that's not true at all. So I think just by putting the adult back in the classroom, then we are more open to their mistakes because they are transitioning, they're transitioning again. So that's, in a way, that's kind of where I see it. And also I'm a teacher, so I feel like that's where I am, I'm in a classroom a lot. That's a little bit of my, my autobiography. But I think primarily it's like putting an adult back into a physical space where we just allow for more mistakes, because it's a place of transition. Amy Bestie's in the back there.
Can I just yell? Or
No.
He's like, no. This is Germany. There shall not be yelling.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for both of these programs. They're really beautiful. One question I have that I've been really fascinated with the narratives is these women who are on who are breaking down, the adult women who are breaking down, it always seems to be about, and this is where I'm seeing this, so this is what I'm asking, about relationships and men. And yet the girls are having these their growth is not focused on men. Their growth is about like Octavia Butler, Joan Didion, this kind of like burgeoning and emerging creative sort of life force about escaping. And so I'm wondering, like, what is that comparison? Like, what's happening there with the breakdown being kind of like this sort of closed sort of relationship where the girls are having this kind of like burgeoning, emerging something that's beyond just this sort of heteronormative or whatever relationship.
Right. Yeah, and that's also, I mean, that's clearly really purposeful, you know, that I want the girls to seem like they have a lot of agency in their lives and that they are, they're consuming their radical history, you know, and they are living feminism. Whereas the women, the adult women have come through, it's like there is no light at the end of their tunnel, and they're really in this vortex of the antithesis of radicalness or acknowledging their own history and their own experiences, you know. And it's something, I guess, that I not so much for myself experienced, you know, but watching maybe friends of mine who were, you know, the leaders of the punk bands when we were in high school and, you know, organizing the socialist potlucks, you know, instead of going to the high school football game or whatever, you know, have become the most boring people in the room on some level, you know, who are just kind of consumed by their relationships, whether it's with, you know, their partners or their children, you know. And it's such a, in a way, like a bell jar. And it's you know, I showed my undergraduate class a clip from Safe, Todd Haynes' Safe, and we read The Yellow Wallpaper, kind of in companion to that, you know, and both of those are about these sort of miserable housewives. And my undergraduate students were like, these are stupid, you know? And because they're not, none of that is, it's not them, right? They're really living these autonomous lives with lots of agency, and, you know, they have no interest in anything that comes in the way of that. And so I was having a hard time explaining, like, you know, 20 years from now, okay, you're gonna call me up while you're peeling the wallpaper off of the nursery walls. And so, you know, I think that it's like that coming of age comes in waves, you know. So I sort of imagine that my adults are in their kind of second, like, adolescence, you know, and that they'll come out of these severe, these breakups, or these kind of life crises with with a new relationship to themselves, which involves that same kind of agency and autonomy that the girls have. And I really think it's important because there's so many, you know, whether it's magazines and commercials and certainly mainstream American films, let's say, for teenage girls, they're all just, you know, championing the kind of boy crazy mean girl, you know. And I just think that that's totally inaccurate. So I mean, obviously the feature film will have, I will hope, it will have it will be hugely successful, massive theater run, let's say. It will be a huge hit with all the teenage girls. They'll all go out and buy band uniforms, you know, that'll be the new thing. But the girls themselves who are in these films like these films and say that they're accurate, you know. And so I really wanted to flip that, you know, and say that, like, these adult women they're actually struggling with what in another kind of film the teenagers struggle with, you know, and sort of vice versa. So it's important that in the end, like this, for this film and also A Million Miles Away, in the end the girls are the heroes, and that's not, I just don't think that that's always the case in another kind of film.
Hi, this is just a question on a more basic, like, just a simple question. I noticed yesterday that the name Candace came up a couple of times, and I was wondering what the significance of that was.
God, I think that's it's like, that's such a good question, because names become really important, and it just seems like it's a fake name, you know? It's like a fake, like they were talking, okay, let's just be real for a second. This morning, so the princess had a baby. Did we know this? News from London. She had her baby, yeah. She had her baby, she had a girl.
News, I guess.
Okay, so the princess, William and Kate, had a girl. No, they were saying that when Queen Victoria was named Victoria, that it was a made-up name, and they might as well have named her Chardonnay. They said that on CNN today. So, because they were making speculation about what she was going to name her, and there was only like 5 names she could name her that would be acceptable. Charlotte was one, Alice was one, Diana. Wouldn't it be great if she named her Diana? And someone was like, she'll never name her Diana. You know, the Queen would never, go for that anyway. So, but there are all these. I'm fascinated with names that really are. They seem they're like fancy names, but really they're made up. I don't know if this happens. If this is happening here, but there's all sorts of people stateside who are naming their babies it sounds like a family name, like Mackenzie and Morgan, or they sound like surnames, So then when you say like, Kennedy, is that a family name? No, it's nothing. It's made up. It's bougie. It's bougie and it's bullshit. Not like Jennifer, which is the most common name of all names. That's a real name. It's extremely common, but it's a real name. So, so there's something about some of their names that are, like the other girl's name is Nova, and I sort of figured that like her kind of hippie parents would name her Nova, but that the other girl's parents who wanted to sort of seem a little bougier than they really, little more classy than they actually were, would, think that Candace was a fancy name. Is your name Candace? You are bougie. No, you're not. Your parents are. Do you go by Candy? No. Start it. Everything for you. Just tonight. Just try it tonight. Just try it here. Just with us. This
is all about transformation. Personal transformation.
Candy, everybody. She's right here. She'll be here all night. That's like, that's different.
Can I ask a question about the girls?
Yes.
So did they get all the references? Like the
No.
Agnes Scott?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Butler?
Not at all. In fact, Morgan couldn't pronounce Didion. So she was like, when I get older, I'll probably change it back to Joan, like Joan da 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 da. And I was just like, Didion, you've not, and she was like, yeah, like Joan da 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 da. So I just threw her off the set. So no, she didn't get that. And then Marissa, who was reading the Octavia Butler book, also didn't know who Octavia Butler was, but asked to borrow the book afterwards because she had to sit and kind of actually read it for a while we were shooting, and she was like, this is a good book, and I was like, yeah, duh, But then actually, like, a lot of people on the set didn't get the other references,
right.
And so about, like Spellman, or Agnes Scott, or Bryn Mawr. Somebody was actually in a different Q&A was asking me, they thought Bryn Mawr was a band. Which is fine. Bryn Mawr. Maybe if you didn't get that, she's ironing on names of women's colleges in the States. So I thought that was a great idea to make those
props. I wonder if it translated also to a European audience.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Maybe you thought Bryn Mawr was a band. It can be. Candy's band is Bryn Mawr. Candy is putting together the band. She's putting the band back together, and they're called Bryn Mawr. But not all those references. And even Mike, he wanted me to take out he thought that the Joan Didion line, there were too many Joans in the bathroom conversation. So he was like, just take out the Joan Didion line. And I said, well, no, that's really important. He said, but I don't even know who Joan Didion is. So I was like, you go find out. Yeah. Yeah, I called him out. But I think that it's not like if you don't get those references either as in an audience but maybe you will look it up later, and think like, I'm going to see who that is, and I will, read one of those books or something. And but the girls, no, they didn't get all the references, but we talked about them, then we had like little conversations between takes, where I was like, oh, you should read that book, or yeah, you can take that book, or look into Bryn Mawr. You're a junior in high school. That might be a good school for you to go to, or whatever.
So they received an education.
They did, yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it was really important that in that there's a lot of that kind of radical sort of feminist history sort of injected injected into that, just so that it's not just this kind of weird little short narrative, but that maybe some of you will take away.
And the great Chantal Ackerman.
Oh yeah, did anyone get that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little more vigorous, I think, than
Yeah.
Jean Dielman did it.
Yeah, so Jean Dielman makes a meatloaf in
So
Jean
What we've
Dielman.
seen, yeah. Much
in a-
more kind of methodical.
Yeah, very much, and it's a long take. So that was a reference to that film. But also, if you don't get it, I think it still works. Jean Dielman doesn't throw hers out. I added the throwing it into the yard part. So there's some good sort of feminist film history.
And Nevermind also.
Yeah.
Very
Yes.
much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, that's a nice suit. I think we're all done here. I think we're officially wrapped
Yes.
at Oberhausen.